What is going on, you guys? I'm your host, Stacey Cole Morgan, and you are listening to the MorganMan Sports Podcast here on Spotify, Google Podcasts, GoodPod HQ, or wherever you find your preferred podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are talking about the Call of Duty League Major 3, Week 5, the very final week, in fact, of online qualifiers. I will be presenting my top 3 matches, player stats, and so much more going into this weekend. So without any further delay, let's go get straight into today's action.
The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
Welcome to the MorganMan Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Stacey Cole Morgan. Here on the MorganMan Sports Podcast, we talk Atlanta Falcons news, pre-game predictions, and all other news surrounding the Atlanta Falcons.
Touchdown, Atlanta!
Also on the podcast, we talk Call of Duty League esports, covering roster mania, major predictions, COD champs, player trades, and much more to get you ready for every single CDL weekend.
Scuff goes through, and Scuff snaps, wins the one-on-one in optic with the reverse sweep.
If that sounds good with you, put on your Falcons jersey, grab your gaming headset, and let's get this show started. Alright guys, before we get into all the goodness of today's episode right here, let's do a little bit of house cleaning going forward. So guys, if you are enjoying the podcast so far, hopefully the quality of the content has gotten better for you guys. The social media engagement has been ramped up a little bit here lately, so I'm definitely enjoying that. So make sure you are subscribing to the podcast, not just on YouTube, but Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the podcast players out there, wherever you find your preferred podcast. And also, guys, make sure to follow me on my socials. Just type in MorganMan Sports. But of course, all that will be down in the description below for you guys to check that out. Every Wednesday, I go live on TikTok until it's pretty much banned. Twitter, I do this X Spaces every Sunday. I'm trying to working on every Sunday for like the Call of Duty League or Atlanta Falcons, whatever the case is. So definitely you need to be subscribed and following me on my social media platforms as well, because I am interacting with the fans there as well. Also, guys, I want you to take advantage of the special links down below in the description for Fundrise and Robinhood. Now, we'll go ahead and disclose this right here. This is not financial advice. Please take each and every single investment at your own risk. But on Fundrise, you get a $25 voucher towards your very first purchase of your e-REIT on Fundrise. And also on Robinhood, you get a free stock on me. Now, legal disclosure on that is 95% of the time you will be getting a share up to worth $5. The other 5% is pretty much like a high percentage of like a $200 stock or whatever the case is right there. So again, don't get your hopes up. It is just a $5 stock 95% of the time, but it still is something to get you ahead right now in your financial journey moving forward. So again, this is not legal advice. Please take each and every single investment at your own risk. Do your research before investing. So now, since we got that out of the way, guys, let's talk about the Call of Duty League right here. So the Call of Duty League is in its final week of online qualifiers. The Major 3, Week 5 online qualifiers for the Toronto Major 3. And there's a lot of matches to look forward to. So before we get into the matches right here, ladies and gentlemen, let's go over some CDL point standings. So for your regular season, Atlanta FaZe sitting at number 1 at a comfortable 355 CDL points. Coming at number 2 is Toronto with 295. Number 3, Optic Texas at 295. So this is definitely going to be key matches to look out forward to in Toronto and Optic Texas respective matches throughout the weekend. New York Subliner sitting at 4 with 210. Rocker at 5 with 120. LAG at 6 with 110. Thieves at 100, sitting at 7. Seattle Surge at 8, sitting at 100 CDL points. And your playoff qualification cutoff, Vegas is sitting at 100 CDL points, sitting at 9. 10, the Royal Ravens at 95. Miami Heretics 90 at rank 11. And finally, the Boston Breach at 12 with just 50 CDL points. So those are your CDL point standings going into week 5 of the Major 3 online qualifiers. And guys, let me tell you, this weekend is going to be filled with a lot of matches to determine placements for the Major 3 tournament. So revealing the schedule right here, guys, we are kicking things off today, Friday, May 10th, with the Toronto Ultra taking on the Boston Breach. I definitely feel like this is going to be a 3-0. Los Angeles Thieves against the Seattle Surge. Definitely I'm picking Los Angeles in a 3-1 over the Seattle Surge. Saturday, May 11th, you got the Boston Breach taking on the Vegas Legion. I believe Vegas can win this one right here in a 3-2. Your Monster Energy matchup, you got the Minnesota Rocker taking on the Carolina Royal Ravens. I could see Minnesota winning this in a 3-2. And finally, in your main event, Saturday, May 11th, you got the Seattle Surge taking on the Atlanta FaZe. I believe FaZe is going to have a little bit of competition right here, but I don't think it's going to be too bad, sitting at a 3-1 in favor of Atlanta. For Sunday, May 12th, you got the Miami Heretics taking on the Los Angeles Guerrillas. I definitely see Guerrillas winning this 3-1. Sunday, May 12th, you got the Toronto Ultra taking on the New York Subliners. Guys, this is going to be a back and forth game right here, coming down to the wire. Game number 5, round 11 in Search and Destroy. Guys, I'm taking Toronto in this one over New York. Yes, New York's definitely got the momentum going for them right now, but Toronto, they've been on kind of a losing streak right here, and their only win last week really just came in from a bottom tier team of the Minnesota Rocker, and that was in the 3-0. And then finally, in your main event for Sunday, May 12th, you got the Los Angeles Thieves taking on the Optic Texas squad. Now, Los Angeles is definitely coming off a very dominant win against the Boston Breach in a 3-1. And Optic, guys, they're coming off another dominant victory over the Los Angeles Guerrillas in a 3-1 fashion. So both these teams are looking forward to their match this weekend against one another. And rightfully so. This is placement for Los Angeles and also placement for Optic Texas, which will lead me to my top 3 matches, which number 1 is the Los Angeles Thieves taking on Optic Texas. Guys, I'm looking at this series again in a 3-2 in favor of Optic. I just don't see Los Angeles having that step forward over Optic just yet. Optic has got a lot of struggles because they did struggle against Boston there for a while on Saturday's series. And in a 3-2, Boston definitely was kicking Optic's ass pretty much. And Optic just did not have no answers, especially on Rio 6 or Hotel 6, Star 6, whatever the map name is. Boston was definitely on fire. They had their gunfights down to the exact pinpoint. And Optic just, again, never had no answers against Boston. So this makes me believe that at least Los Angeles can keep up with Optic, but just when it comes to those clutch moments, I think Optic's got that better opportunity to win the series in a 3-2. And for your second matchup this weekend, guys, to look forward to is the Boston Breach taking on the Vegas Legion. Guys, the reason why I like this matchup right here is because Vegas, they are at a tipping point of becoming qualifiers for the playoffs if the season ended today. And Vegas, again, they're in a great position to go up against a mediocre Boston Breach. And if they win this thing just outright in a 3-0, Vegas, they're going to move up. And then Seattle, they're going to have some tough competition again this weekend, go up against the Los Angeles Thieves, Seattle Surge. So that makes me confident in the Vegas Legion. If I'm a fan of them, sit here and say, okay, we're going to be in the playoffs now if the season ended this weekend for the Vegas Legion. And that's why I'm looking forward to that matchup right there. And then finally, in the main event of my top three, you got the Toronto Ultra taking on the New York Subliners. Guys, looking at Toronto and looking at New York, both teams has got a lot of disadvantages going forward, a lot of just disbelief from either side. But I think the better team in this one is going to be Toronto in a 3-2. I think New York, coming off that hot run that they had against the Vegas Legion, is going to run cool pretty much. I think it's going to be to where they're going to have, or actually be up 2-0 against Toronto and sitting here thinking, okay, wow, we're fixing to beat the second best team while we're sitting at number 4, number 5. But then Toronto comes back and beats them 3-2. Toronto figures out their game plan moving forward, but it ain't going to be pretty. Every game from then on that reverse sweep is going to be ugly if you are a Toronto Ultra fan, but you still come out with the dub. You get you some CDL point standings to move a little bit closer to phase, but I think it's just too late to compete with the Atlanta phase in CDL point standings. Now it's just a matter of you got to start beating them when it matters, and that is next weekend in the Toronto Major 3 tournament. So I'm looking forward to it right here, guys. So let's get into a little bit of some CDL stats right here from both team and individual player stats. So overall KD, Atlanta phase leads the pack at a 1.12. New York Subliners coming in at second at 1.05. Toronto Ultra coming at third with 1.05. Optic 1.05 at fourth. And finally, the Las Vegas Legion sitting at number 5. Hardpoint win percentage. Now, this number definitely should be rising a little bit, but Toronto is still a good hardpoint team. Sitting at 80%, sitting at first. Second is Atlanta phase at 69.6. Third is Optic Texas sitting at 67.3. New York Subliners sitting at fourth with 53.5. And the Las Vegas Legion sitting at 51.3. So for overall stats right now, you're looking at Legion, Optic, Toronto, New York, and Atlanta throughout the entire board when it comes to like hard points. Now, Search and Destroy, it does switch up with the Seattle Surge sitting at number 3 with a 63.3% S&D win percentage. But the Atlanta phase sitting at 71.1. So definitely right now, they are the best Search and Destroy team out there. S&D KD falls first place for Atlanta phase at 1.17. Control, definitely Atlanta is the absolute best control team out there right now. They're number 1 in just map win percentage, KD, round wins, and round plus or minus. They're unstoppable. And whenever you're looking at it from that perspective, no wonder Celium is sitting at 1.20. Simp sitting at 1.18 in hardpoint. Gosh, I mean, the whole entire Atlanta phase roster for BP rating is in the top 5. Seriously. But Scrap is sitting at number 3 with a 1.14. Hardpoint KD, half of the Atlanta phase roster, Simp, Celium. KD, overall KD, Celium and Simp. Simp sitting at number 2 in the Slayer rating at 85.46. Hardpoint kills per 10 minutes, Simp coming at number 1. Hardpoint damage per 10 minutes, Simp. I mean, this is absurd. And for search and destroys, Abezy has found his rhythm for S&D first blood percentage at 0.22%. Control KD, Celium sitting at 1.28. The only stat right here for control kills per 10 minutes does not have an Atlanta FaZe roster member on it. Bings is sitting at number 1, Hydra number 2, Scrap 3, Gwen sitting at 4th, and Flame sitting at 5th. Now, control damage per 10 minutes, you got Simp sitting at number 5 with 4,055.88. So overall, the Atlanta FaZe is just totally dominating the scene, guys. And there's really nothing that none of these teams are going to do to stop that. So the Atlanta FaZe is looking very prominent this weekend against the Seattle Surge. Like I said, it's probably going to be a 3-1 if I would have to imagine right. I think Seattle might get that search and destroy on them right now. And if you look at the search and destroy category and overall team stats, you know, Seattle sits at number 4 in KD and in round wins. And of course, sitting at 3 with win percentage for search and destroy. But Atlanta FaZe is number 1 in all of them categories. So this is definitely going to be a very tough matchup for both teams, Atlanta and Seattle, moving forward to this weekend for the Saturday series. So guys, let me know what you think of this weekend's matches in my top 3 for this weekend. Do you think this was just right on the nail for the top 3 matches to look forward to this weekend? I know I didn't have Atlanta FaZe in it, but Atlanta FaZe can't be in it every single weekend. Right now, the bottom teams has got to have the spotlight because they need all the momentum they can get and all the wins they could get to make CDL champs here in July. So it is going to be interesting this weekend. Hopefully we get a lot of action moving forward. I hope it's not a DoorDash weekend, honestly. I hope it's a kind of an upset series for a lot of teams moving forward right here. Like, I could see, I mean, I can't see it, but Boston Breach could just start swinging from the gates and beat Toronto Ultra this weekend. Then they could flop against the Vegas Legion. Who knows? Or Seattle Surge could defeat the Atlanta FaZe on their dominant win streak right now. Heretics could beat the Gorillas. I mean, the possibilities are endless right now for all these CDL teams in the second to last major tournament. So I like what I see right here, guys. Hopefully you do as well, and we'll get things moving forward next weekend with my breakdown of the Toronto Major 3 tournament of who I think will win, along with the MVP of the tournament. Now, as far as the Atlanta Falcons news, guys, I am recording this on Monday, May 6th at 6:50 p.m. Eastern Standard. Now, the NFL schedule is set to be released, yesterday actually, but at the time of this recording on Monday, May 6th, there's no news of whether or not the schedule is going to be released on Thursday or not. So if you are hearing this on Friday, right here, guys, make sure to tune in this weekend on the X Spaces category, where I go live on Twitter and we'll discuss the breakdown of the Atlanta Falcons season schedule in order this time. We already know the opponents, but we just don't know the order of which that will be for this 2024/25 NFL season for the Atlanta Falcons. So I do apologize in advance for that right there, but yes, I will be covering it this weekend on Twitter for you guys to check that out. But guys, I sure hope you did enjoy, and if you did, make sure to like button wherever you are listening from. iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your preferred podcasts. Make sure you are downloading the podcast does help out each and every single week to continue this podcast and increase my rankings on Apple and other podcast platforms. But until then, I, Morgan, will catch you all later. Peace.
Thank you for listening to this Belly Up Sports Podcast Network product. Some said we go belly up, so we made it our name, and we're still here.